Hello, my name is Yahya, and this is my project for my poetry unit final. I decided to research the poet from Wisconsin, Lorine Niedecker. Soon enough, you'll find out why I think about her as a master of poetry. Before we get started, let's have a quick overview. First, I'll be going over identities, specifically of Lorine and I, basically a timeline of their life and a few facts about them. I'll then compare the identity of the two of us and see the similarities and differences. After that, I'll be talking about the questions I came up with, along with how Lorraine's poems may answer said question. I'll end it off by creating a poem of my own and seeing how it compares to Lorraine's and how it answers the question. Let's start with part 1, Identity. Starting with Lorine Niedecker, this timeline splits her life into 3 parts. Lorine was born in Wisconsin on May 12, 1903, and got married in 1928 when she was 25. She divorced on 1946, 18 years later. Around that time, she published a book called New Goose. In that time, she also got pregnant and aborted her child at the same time. The next 10 years are weird to have as their own place, but I did this because in this time frame, she didn't release any of her poems to be published, meaning she was basically absent in the poetry world. She tried to make a poem based on her editor's son, but it was turned down for being too personal. This is the only known attempt from her to publish within these 10 years, probably because she was too much of a hassle to get to, being so far away from civilization. She finally got some recognition in the last 10 years of her life, due to being visited by world-famous publishers by chance. The last 10 years were the first time in her poetry career that poetry actually helped her financially. She died on December 31st, 1970. She requested for her work to be burned right before her death, probably since she didn't want anyone to steal them. Now, here are some facts about her. She was born with her mother and father by her side, but her mother died shortly after that. She was born and lived in the rural area of Wisconsin, away from towns. Her first book was titled New Goose, a compilation of her many poems she had made previously. Despite her critically acclaimed poems, her isolated cottage meant that many wanted to reach out for her to publication, due to it being too much of a hassle. Next, let's go on to someone way more interesting. Me. Here's a timeline of my life currently, and I gotta say, I'm pretty great. I was born on March 19th, 2005 in Toronto, and moved to the other side of Canada, Surrey, 3 months later. When I was old enough, I went to a private Muslim school in Surrey. My mother worked there, and continues to, and my brother also went there along with me, though he is 2 years older than me. Currently, I'm attending Fraser Heights Secondary, taking advanced classes and continuing to love soccer. Now here are some facts about me. I was born in Toronto, Ontario, and I moved to British Columbia 3 months later, as I said before. I'm a born Muslim, and I follow the religion of Islam. I went to a private school, and later came to Fraser Heights Secondary. My family members describe me as rambunctious, loud, and an airhead. A quote directly from my mother. So, let's talk comparisons between me and Lorine. There are many similarities and differences between us. Both of them attended high school, yet Lorine dropped out early on. Our personalities are vastly different, as described by other colleagues. I've been stated that I'm not very good at talking, and in my own words, I just can't seem to be quiet. My personality also makes him incapable of detecting sarcastic behavior. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Lorine was described as a gentle, soft woman who didn't talk much. She usually kept everything to herself, her editor described in an interview. Her lack of company other than her parents due to living far away from towns and cities led to her becoming shy and closed off to most people. They do have some similarities, though. Both of us have strong viewpoints on different topics, and we're not afraid to share them. We are also both dedicated to what we do, even if we aren't the best at it. In conclusion, we are both very different people, with very different circumstances and personalities, but our common traits are notable. Next, let's move on to my big question. So, after reading some of Lorine's poems, here's the info I gathered. Lorine always prefers to make her poems short, usually few stanzas with 2 or 3 lines in them. She has made more than 100 poems, but only 72 of them are recorded in books and collections. Here are the poems that I decided to read for research: Fall, Catherine Anne, Wilderness, Poet's Work, and Easter. Almost all of her poems have different themes, but one that she uses multiple times is bitterness. Lorine made a lot of these poems after unfortunate events occurred in her life, such as dropping out of high school and her father's death. A lot of her poems involve trying to do something or see someone, only to fail miserably and have negative emotions towards it, such as weeping and cursing. Using all of this data, I was able to come to a question I found interesting. Does hard work always pay off in a positive way? Of the 5 poems I read, this is the one that influenced me the most. Meaning, it must have an answer to my question as well. Let me read the poem to you. Poet's Work. Grandfather advised me, learn a trade. I learned to sit at desk and condense. No layoff from this condensery. Now in 1 year, a book published in plumbing. Took a lifetime to weep, a dream, and trickle. Let's go on to examine her answer. In case you forgot, my question is, does hard work always have a positive payoff? Based on this poem, Lorraine seems to disagree with me. In the first 3 lines, the poet's grandfather encouraged her to get a job. From lines 4 to 9, she describes what she does, condensing her words and poems into books. In lines 8 and 9, she says, no layoff from this condensery. This means she worked tirelessly, with no layoff or break. After she publishes the books, from lines 13 to 16, she shows the amount of work she has done on it, and saying, it took a lifetime. After that, she uses the words we, or cry, to communicate the tears that went into making the book, and how she regrets using so much time on it, only for a trickle of the rewards. She didn't get what she deserved through her lifetime of hard work. This clearly represents her life, as she was not recognized as a genius until after her death, where she could not benefit from it anymore. For the final part, I'll be making my own poem to answer the question and examine it. Let me first read the poem I made. Another day at school. I stay up all night, racking my brains to see what I got right. This test will destroy me or let me reach new heights. I try to testify my answers in my head, but with no confirmation, I just couldn't seem to go to bed. At last, I close my eyes and doze off. Tomorrow is another day at school. I struggle to get out of bed, worry swirling through my head. The uplifting words of my parents vanish, like a flame being put out. The large building looming over me welcomes me with open arms, and every step closer fills me with doubt. Just another day at school. The deafening hallways lead to my classroom. I know going there will surely lead to my doom. Alas, I move on. I enter and trudge to my desk, and the anxiety I feel tightens my chest. Just another day at school. Here are your tests back, the teacher says. My head keeps spinning, though I pretend to be unfazed. The test slips onto my desk like an unwanted quest. I print begrudgingly opening my eyes, and a big red number makes all the hopes I had die. Just another day at school. I rush to the bathroom, the unpleasant smell blocked by my fears. I weep and cry, and want to die. What about the countless hours I worked? All for nothing. The blood, sweat, and tears I put in? All for nothing. The ambitious plans I boasted for so long? All for nothing. A question took over my mind like a parasite. What's even the point? The despair fills my heart, and I realize that I never had a chance from the start. Just another day at school. Now that you've listened, let me tell you why I did what I did. For my poem, Another Day at School, I wanted to write about something that can easily lead to something else that can lead to bad results, despite the effort. So I decided on tests, since I have a lot of experience with the feeling of getting a test back. I wanted to try to emulate the little wordage style of Lorine, but I quickly found that that was no easy task. I instead decided to emulate the theme of bitterness in my poem, just like many of Lorine's poems do. The poem starts with anxiety, as in line 6, it says, every step fills me with doubt. The poet is getting closer to something he fears, but must go on to see the results of his hard work. All this hard work is for naught, as it's revealed that the grade on the paper was less than stellar. The final stanza is the poet breaking down, even asking himself, what's even the point? This emulates many of Lorine's poems. Having a goal the poet worked hard to get but fails miserably at the deciding moment, or didn't get anything out of the effort the poet put in. I represented this bitterness in the final paragraph with words like despair. My question was, does hard work always pay off positively? The answer I got was no. Sometimes even the hardest of workers fail. I share that sentiment. Sometimes no matter how hard you work, you'll fail, as sad as that may seem. I reflected in this poem through the test, showing the bitterness one feels after a situation like this. So in conclusion, no matter how hard you work, there will always be times where it isn't enough. That's the end of the presentation. Thanks for listening and have a great day.